Today is November 4th. The Yankees postseason officially now really begins because they did the press conferences and we start to move forward. So let's talk Yanks.
Talking Yanks with old John Boy, Jake. Recaps galore, weekly awards, stat lines, steam and hot takes. Get your Yankees news from East to find news. It's time for Talking Yanks. Talking Yanks with old John Boy, and Jake. Talking Yanks with old John Boy, and Jake.
Hello and welcome to Talkin' Yanks, presented to you by SeatGeek, our playoff sponsor, and the playoffs are still going. If you want to go see any other sport, I doubt what you guys will want to fly to Houston to watch the Astros potentially win. So any other sport or event that you buy a seat for, SeatGeek has a John Boy playoffs for 10% off. Hey, hiatus is over. I guess we're going to be back into the rhythm of things, maybe once a week for a little bit and then twice a week whenever we get to, I don't know the cadence of the show, but we're back. Jake, how are you? You look great.
James, Davis, I'm all right. A little tired. The Yankees press conference that now signifies the start of the offseason stinks a little bit because that means there's two other teams still playing baseball today. And even, you can analyze, and we will a little bit, some of these quotes and things. And even Boone at one point, I think he not a slip up, but he was just like, every year we do this press conference because we have to or something. It's like, well, I don't have to. I got one other thing we could do. But yeah, every year it gives a little bit of insight. I do think if we were doing a juiciness scale, I thought this year was a little low on the juicy scale.
Yeah, I think so. I think it low on the juice. There was a couple tidbits. I mean, sometimes you do get really big quotes. Last year we got Gleyber Torres is not a shortstop. We will be looking for a shortstop. And that was big for them to admit that, Right. 1 year we got Didi needs Tommy John. He's out for all of next season. That was huge. So we didn't get anything.
It was usually a surprise injury, and there isn't one this year.
Yeah, no surprise injury, nothing wild, but some good stuff. I will say, Jake, I love our friends that are on the beat, and I know they got a job to do, but it's like twofold, a little kind of like the questions were odd. I texted Jack Curry to ask, like, hey, do I not understand the decorum here? Like, how are there no tough questions being asked at all here? Like, how do you not ask about game one of the ALCS and going to Clark Schmidt and that pitching? How did no one ask about that? So Jack's working, so he didn't respond to me. But, if I'm off base and that's just not something you do at these, then maybe. But I feel like in the past, they've asked about specific moments and decisions. And Boone, I remember in 2018, was like, actually I was driving around the other day reflecting, and I do think I, made some decisions that I wish I wouldn't. And we just had none of that. And then a lot of the quotes that I'm now seeing on Twitter, I don't think represent the tone or tenor of what Boone and Cashman were actually saying. And they're going to be used to fire up everyone 20 times harder. I watched the whole thing and I fucking wrote down all the quotes. I have a transcription of it in front of me. And I was kind of writing. I was like, oh man, that one sentence is going to be tweeted and fire people up. And that whole process is really making me bummed out about like what we do, or like trying not to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level to it that is almost like rules of engagement, I think, between the press and the Yankees front office for this. And I think there could have been some more direct things when they, there was questions about like what do you change analytically year in, year out if things are successful or not? And
I like that one.
it was good, but a lot of the questions you were hoping to lean into, I think some of the things we talked about, like, there's a Philadelphia Phillies team that has rolled out the most consistent top part of their lineup that we've seen from a baseball team. And I think that was the only time Cash really went to some of the injury stuff, which, every Yankee fan we've talked to since the point, and even, on the extreme scale of us and Joe's and everyone in our office, diehard Yankee fans, you can't land here, but the further away you get from it, like DJ and Benny being the two guys that were banged up, change the whole course of this lineup. And outside of that, it's kind of the whole left side of the infield discussion, which we had all year, and we're going to have all off season, and we'll probably have all next year too. So where do we want to go, and who's bringing us there?
Yeah. DraftKings, Jake said the prospects were going to get called up and IKF wasn't going to be starting in the postseason. And eventually that was right. That would have been a great bet by you, Jake. I think it was me in June who said, hey, this guy can't be our shortstop in the postseason. And I would have placed the bet then, and we would have been wrong for games 1, 2, and 3. Then we would have been right. They make that bet available on DraftKings again. I will take it. It's also that's like, we'll do the next segment on once I finish this read on IKF, because the puzzle gets more confusing and more interesting. But DraftKings isn't confusing. They give you free money all the time, Jake. All you got to do is sign up, use code JOMBOY when you do, and you can bet $5 on any World Series game. There's 2 left, potentially, or 1, and you can win $200 in free bets. You take those 200 free dollars and you bet them on more things, and you earn more money, and you have as much fun safely as you can. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY and bet $5 to win $200 in free bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code JOHNBOY. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. MLB trademarks used with permission. Real quick, Cashman's back. He's not under contract right now, but he's doing this press conference. And if you're Hal or Randy Levine or the Yankees and you don't plan on him being the GM, you don't send him to represent your company in the press conference about the future plans. And Cashman was like, I'm back. Yeah, I just got to do the paperwork. It's almost like a Brett Gardner contract from a couple years ago where you're like, it's happening. Just like, we're not in a rush to do it. Like, it's just going to be like the last hour of every workday until it's done situation. So that he's back, and Boone is also not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be. I think it might be Brett Gardner contract situation might be insult to Cashman situation. I mean, he's
not last year, but
right, before, but I mean, Cashman's going to have it. I think for life. I think that's what one of the things I found out today. I know it's been a conversation, but think about who the Yankees are. Think about how buttoned up they like to be and run as an organization. The fact that they would technically have a non-employed member of the organization representing their upcoming offseason plans. Cashman will be back. I was one of the people that wondered if it would be in a different role, like one of those more higher up VP general manager roles. I don't think so. I think Cashman made that very clear, that he wants to continue running the ship. I mean, the Steinbrenner family, obviously, to be a general manager for this long, 20 something years, as Cashman phrased it, is wild. It really doesn't happen in pro sports that way. So I know a lot of people view that as a double-edged sword. Sometimes the grass is not always greener on the other side. So there's that part of the conversation. But yeah, it ties into, I think some of the words that Cash was saying, you do view as a double-edged sword of, that when he's talking about his processes and believing what you're doing. And even if the result isn't there, as long as you believe in what you're doing, that's part of it. I know that that was frustrating for me briefly. I know it's a sentence and you're saying the right thing, but the whole point is, we're coming up short year over year. And when at a certain point you have to look in the mirror and say, why are we coming up short year after year? And it's, I think the consensus kind of across Yankee land is there's some tweaks that need to be made. And if you're going to continue to believe in your processes, and we have seen the tweaks being made, whether it's adding lefties to the lineup or not going purely on OPS or some of the things that we have complained about, we've seen the Yankees address some of the defensive stuff that Cashman harped on early on in his presser. But yeah, it's how much internal tweaks will they make after this season? Because the truth of it is they view this season highly successful. They went from the 1-game wild card to the ALCS, and then they kind of jumped to the injury thing there.
Yeah, that was disappointing to hear. Again, not much of this press conference made me hot because I'm kind of I've simmered from my boil with the time off. Some things surely were interesting that we'll get to, but them saying like we improved from last year where we were the 1-game wild card. Well, that was a disappointment. Disappointments don't set the bar, right? You were in the ALCS, then you were in the divisional series, then you were in the ALCS, then you were in the divisional series, then you were in the wild card. That was a disappointment. It was a step backwards. When you take a step backwards, that doesn't then become the bar. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like that wasn't, you don't lower the bar and then get excited for beating the lowered bar. So why compare it to the wild card? And that was an utter disappointment of a season, not a standard in which being better than that is plausible on its own merit. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was disappointing to me to be like, well, we improved from, but that year, that was bad. That was like a really bad I guess I've made my point but that was the only thing I was like, that's weird.
And that's where Jack Curry, him and Kay are always awesome. And I think people know that even before we were linked to Yes, we would be saying the same stuff that like Curry started giving a speech about George Steinbrenner and demanding if it wasn't a World Series, then the year was a failure. And he told the story about 97, they lose and they erased like World Series champions off the board or whatever. And I thought Jack Curry was going to give like a modern age sports speech of like, winning the World Series every year is hard. No, Curry kind of like went back into it. And he's like, well, that's how George Steinbrenner actually operated. That if you didn't win the World Series, it was a failure. And I think, again, I'll reference our guy Joe's because sometimes Joe's breaks it down into its simplest form. That was the standard. And, those press conferences this year, they wouldn't have mentioned last year's team. They would have mentioned how the Astros have been running laps around them and how we need to address that differently. And at least if you want to take solace from something that stinks, they did admit that the Astros are ahead of them, which that's kind of a big step for this Yankees front office. Yeah,
that was better than last year when they were like, they've caught up to us. Like, no, like you're behind. And I think that was an agreed upon point. I don't know if Zillow gives Boone and Cash any like pointers as PR help goes, but it seems like that was an agreed upon, like, we have to admit they were better than us. Like, we have to be honest that we were the underdogs. They were better than us and we got beat by a better team because they came off so bad with the wind and the excuses and all that shit. So Judge is probably the biggest topic. It's not that interesting. Let me see. I have Boone's quotes here. Boone said, Hoke asked, did it feel like goodbye? And Boone said, I hope not. We had a nice conversation. I'm hoping he comes back. It's above me. Cashman basically just said, it's up to Hal.
Yeah, and good on Cash. And he went a little further than that. Like he quoted Hal's daddy, and he talked about fannies in the seats. Like he went away from just
he put the whole like, and here's why you should sign him, Hal.
And he didn't just talk baseball. He went tickets and jerseys and seats. So the fact Cash did that, good on cash to be able to do that. And, you know, I think we try to tell our listeners and everyone that, like, guess what? If Aaron Judge could be signed by all 30 teams, that goes to the owner. Every GM wants Aaron Judge. It becomes the owner, and cash laid it out there. But I'll tell you what, a little bit of that gave me a scare. Because if Brian Cashman, who is very calculated, is using his postseason press conference time to remind Hal that Aaron Judge has a lot of benefits off the field, that
maybe it's not reminding Hal. Maybe it's not reminding Hal. Maybe it's just letting the public know, like, we understand. And maybe it's letting Judge's agent know we understand the value.
I think so. And a lot of this is a dance, but yeah.
With these big ass signings, Cashman, Cole, you go back and Harper and Machado, when you're talking $300 million, 10 years, and this is not a cop. I'm not trying to defend Cashman here. I'm just being honest. That's not his call. He's going to want to fucking sign him, guys.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that really good player I can lock up for 10 years. I want to sign him. The Yankees were trying to get on their luxury tax. Cash doesn't, that's just his orders. There's other areas. Like, I don't like the trades Cashman made for left side of the infield year. And I think those should really be looked into and thought at. And there's other moves that I really don't like. So I'm not like full defense here, but when it comes to those 10-year, $300 million contracts, that is up to Hal or maybe Randy Levine. Like, it's not. Cash would obviously say, like, yep, that's an easy move for me to make. I'll get that really good guy.
When we draw up our, 2023 projected starting lineup, which I just decided I'm going to do it as a gag list, but just to get the kids riled up. That decision is Randy Levine or a lot of the Yankees front office saying, well, if we sign Aaron Judge for $300 million, we expect to make 400 off of him in his lifetime. And Cashman on the other side is balancing, again, general manager. Think about when you go to a grocery store and you talk to the general manager, they're kind of dealing with customers and their employees and the owner and everything. That's what Cash does. And yeah, he wants Aaron Judge starting in right field, number 99, hitting. I was going to say hitting number 2, but that starts to get into offseason plans a little bit.
Yeah. And I think it was Cuddy who said, like, isn't it optimal to sign him early because it's so much money. The rest of your moves are kind of contingent on this move, which is true.
Right.
And yes, Cashman was like, yes, but the phrase he used was he dictates the dance, and he's earned the right to go get courted by all 30 teams if he wants and make his decision whenever he wants. So that was the end of his quote. They can give him the number 1 offer and Judge can still go to all 30 teams on his own time. And are you going to counter? 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 And then, okay, no one's higher and I want to come back. I'll go you. And it's not the Yankees doing it. This is fully Judge's doing on when he signs.
Yes and no. I mean, the Yankees can give their best offer or what's their perceived best offer. And if Judge thinks waiting till spring training can get a better offer from them, that's one way to go about it, or from any other team. Like, this is for Aaron Judge. This is kind of, the biggest decision of his life. Like, not to be rude to him, it is like, if he wants to change everything he's about and team and organization and where he lives and how much money he can potentially bring in, this is the one. This is it. And he's earned that right. And hey, it's a little bit on the Yankees because we know they were talking before the season. Hell, we got the numbers. And now Judge probably loves that those numbers became public because people are going to end up with egg on their face. And maybe it stays within the organization and Judge has a big laugh as he's got a couple few more zeros in his bank account. But yeah, I guess the part that's scary that you're alluding to is that the Yankees have pretty clearly set their goal list every year of boom, boom, boom. And once we get this, then we'll move on to this. Let's get shortstop, and then we'll move on to catcher.
Yes, they do things in order.
That's the scary part, especially because with how much money is involved. If the Judge stuff goes awry, you have to have a whole alternate plan to fully retool this team. And hopefully we never get there. But if they don't make moves on Judge in November, December, and that means there's a whole freeze on the rest of the team, which for us would be brutal. And, other guys are making that same life decision as Aaron Judge. They're going to make their moves. So if we end up in spring training talking about, well, the Judge thing took a long time to get figured out, and they could have made a move on this guy, but it was already done, that would be frustrating. But that's for them to figure out.
I'm trying to see the year they signed Garrett Cole. I know it was during winter meetings, which is December before Christmas, December 18th. Just loaded the page.
It was a little late that year, but yeah, around then.
I'm trying to see if they did anything before that, Jake, to go to your theory. Not your theory. It's
right.
They did like 40-man cleanup moves and all that, but like major moves. I think Cole was the only free agent.
That was it.
That was it.
And then a month later they signed Brett Gardner. That was all they did that year.
Was that the year they signed someone during spring training?
Maybe that would be in 2020. So I'd have to go to the next year's transaction page.
I think I remember there
when
being
was
like
DJ?
GJ was the next off season, right? He would have been after 2020. 2020 was Cole's first year.
Yeah, 2020 was Cole's first year. No, they didn't sign anyone in March.
Yeah, I think I recall. I mean,
COVID happened, so
at one point that next off season, like, because even with the DJ thing, there were like tweets going around like last free agent the Yankees brought in to a multi-year deal it's only been Garrett Cole in the last however many off seasons because DJ was their own guy.
Damn, man. Be cool to have it done in winter meetings, but I don't know if Judge is going to do that.
Yeah, they're like December 3rd this year, so a month. And yeah, the rest of the baseball offseason is going to hit hyperdrive a little bit because with the World Series finishing a week late, that's kind of normally that buffer week of figuring out player options and stuff. It's going to start to go elsewhere. So yeah, interested to see, as we all are. I mean, it's Yankee fans, it's Aaron Judge. And is it gonna get hot to trot by Thanksgiving? That phrase I'm always saying. Or, it's
wild Garrett Cole signed so early.
Mid-December.
That winter meetings is like every day one of the big pitchers went.
Yeah.
So just the pitchers got it done.
And that was the exciting winter meetings after the bad winter meetings.
Give me Bryce Harper signed in March. Manny Machado signed February 21st. Like spring training had already started for both those guys.
That was like the collusion year, though. And,
yeah, but what's another more recent comparison then? Who was a big free agent last year?
I mean, a lot of guys signed before the lockout because they wanted to get their contracts done. So a lot of the big shortstops got signed.
Yeah, last year's a weird year to choose.
That's the thing. We don't really have the proper.
Yeah, we've had.
New CBA. We've got collusion in the past. We got COVID. We've got. Yeah.
That Harper Machado year, a few like mid-tier guys got done during winter meetings. Like that's when the Yankees got J Happ and
I guess 2020 before. No. All right. Yeah. Interesting. All right. We'll see when Judge signs. The Cashman at one point was like, hypothetically, if Judge does return, we would still need to make more moves. So blah, 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 blah. They want him back.
They're going to try to get him back. At some point, they're going to have to make probably a couple trades. And I know the one trade we make is trade coffee. I drink coffee pretty much every day. Jimmy's drinking coffee right now. Trade Coffee is a coffee subscription service that makes it so simple for you to discover new coffees and make your best cup of coffee at home every day. Guess what, people? Winter's coming. Facts only from me today. And you're going to want to be brewing up a good cup of joe in your house. You don't want to go outside into that northeast winter weather or wherever the heck you are, because Trade will ship it right to your house. It's easy and convenient. It uses your personalized recommendations to get the perfect cup of coffee for you And how about a little deal for you at drinktrade.com/Yanks? You'll get $30 off your subscription to the best coffees in the country. Right now, go to drinktrade.com/Yanks, and you'll get $30 off your subscription plus free shipping. If you're a coffee drinker, give them a shot. Trade.
How'd you know that I was drinking coffee and not sludge?
Again, educated guess.
Smart guy.
Thank you.
Let's go to the left side of the defense. That was obviously a area of questioning. We'll start with Josh Donaldson. I think he's back next year. Maybe not. It could be, old smokescreen, because what else are you going to say? Boone had, he's a little softer. Boone had a quote that was one of the quotes that was tough. No, never mind. I thought it was going to be tough and it wasn't. But he just said, like, where the hell is it?
Well, yesterday on K's show, they talked about it with him a little bit, and they talked about both of them cited his elite defense a lot, and
yeah, he was like, I was blown away.
Yes,
about his defense at third base. And he said, is it his age? I don't know. Maybe it's just a bad year, but he never. All right, here's it. Cuddy asked him, did age catch up with Donaldson? And Boone said, I don't know. Age? I was blown away at how he played third. Age didn't show up there. His offensive season, again, coming out of the lockout, starting with a new team, he never got on track and got that extended hot streak. He'd get it going for a couple days and then take a step back. It was just one of those years where it was hard to get that consistently all the time. Hard to say if that is age related or just one of those seasons. I still think he has a lot in there. We saw this happen with Brett Gardner, who's not a former MVP and all this. They went on this, traded for McCutchen, and they started McCutchen over Gardner towards the end. And in the postseason, sans one game. So my follow-up, which they didn't have, is like, okay, so if you're admitting he never got going,
right,
why did you stick with him in the postseason? You expected him to just get, you know what I mean? Like, okay, if you think can get going next year, and Cashman said, like, his offense was surely not what we expected, and it wasn't injury related, so we don't know what was going on there. We're hoping that he returns to form next season. Whatever. But it still doesn't make sense. Okay, so you knew this guy wasn't producing, wasn't getting hot, stuck with him through the regular season and in the playoffs. And then add up.
Well, and that turns into the frustrations we talked about with the Yankees and with them just strictly believing in processes. How many how many post-game press conferences do we have with Aaron Boone this year where he was like, it's going to click with Joshy. We know JD's about to get hot. He's doing his work. And then to sit there and say it never happened. Well, guess what? During those regular season press conferences, you couldn't have Meredith or someone say like, nah, he's stinking and it's never going to click. Like, and then for you to, at the end of the year, to say it didn't happen. I got pretty big. I don't know. During the press conference, the way that Boone and Cash were dancing around it, I kind of got big that they're going to try to figure out something different than Josh Donaldson vibes.
While keeping respect on his name.
Because, and think about it, whether it's a salary dump trade or whatever it is, you're not going to say like, the offense was trash. I think he's done. Because then while they are pursuing all options, which they have to do, they can't do that. And maybe that 1 year of Josh Donaldson, whether the Yankees would be willing to eat or if an organization wants a good prospect with it to take a chance on him for a year. Would it be nutty that Josh Donaldson could be a slightly above league average hitter next year? No, I've seen a lot of stuff in baseball, but the product we saw last year was tough. And where I'm talking myself out of it, because I do think the way they were kind of phrasing it was, just the fact that they were pretty much admitting he wasn't a good hitter. that's a big step for them. That I don't know. They use the same arguments we did when we were wondering if he was healthy. Like, the defense did look great, and it did. Like, credit to Josh Donaldson. Playing third base at that level at his age is nuts. But kind of like we were saying, comparing yourself to the 21 Yankees team, there's other third basemen that play really good defense around Major League Baseball, and they might have an opportunity to hit a lot better than Josh did this year. So I think it's definitely Donaldson obviously is in play this offseason. It's got to make sense with everything else they're doing. But then I end up talking myself into, if they really have to dump or eat money or prospects or whatever it is, would they not, if they genuinely did think there's a chance for him to click back to something else, why wouldn't they bring him to camp? And if it does, then you didn't have to dump cash or you didn't have to dump players. But the problem is, and it's that processes that we just talked about.
Yeah, their plan is their plan.
With Josh Donaldson or with Cashman and saying, you just got to believe in your process and go with it. Well, you end up digging yourself in a hole, which was our whole left side of the infield. So that's the part that's scary, is that if you do bring back Josh Donaldson, how long do you continue to drag that out? Because the Yankees, as they've shown this year, could be up until your back is against the wall in elimination.
Right. So like, that's like, if you bring him back, you have to be ready to pull the plug. You can't do what you did last year. And then at that point, if that's what you're saying around the round table, like, all right, hey guys, we bring JD back and he's our A plan, we have to be ready to pull the plug. That's probably not how you go into a season.
Yeah.
Already hedging.
Because think about it. Let's say the Yankees offseason goes and, Oswaldo's around and he doesn't have a position. Maybe they brought in a left fielder and the infield has some other spots. The Yankees would have to look themselves in the mirror and say, well, would we actually play Oswaldo Cabrera over Josh Donaldson? Because they had some times and opportunities to do that. And I don't think they would. I don't think they would put Josh Donaldson, the 2015 MVP that got shouted out during the press conference, on the bench for an Oswaldo Cabrera or someone like that. And then if you don't believe in Oswaldo Cabrera as your starter at third base, then yeah, you just spun yourself in circles for no reason. The optimistic best spin view of it is, if they were willing to change on their cut and run ability, is you let Donaldson play the first 2 months of the season. If it looks a little better, you go, okay, interested. If it doesn't, then you can make a trade at the deadline or something like that. Like we saw with, Gallo this year even, but that's, you don't see other teams really with that game plan. The Houston Astros, that's not their game plan. And maybe start comparing. If you're going to do this, have we heard the Houston Astros bring in a veteran on a down season and hoping he would click to not have to do a bad trade to get out of it? No, like that's just not part of their formula. So why should it be part of our formula?
Yeah, no, definitely. And maybe we're just trying to project what we want to get out of their quotes, but I was like, this sounds a little bit like they have to say this because they're not going to disrespect him, but it doesn't sound like they're sold on him. And then with IKF, it's really interesting to hear what Boone says about him now, knowing what we found out. Did we share that? Can we share that?
So I don't think we fully can, but what Boone did say in the press conference, and people may not believe it, but he made the decision. He said that in the press conference, that he made the decision to make the move at shortstop because IKF was struggling.
And other departments did not want to do that, and Boone overruled them, is what we heard. So it's interesting to hear him defend him now. And we were making fun of how Boone, how you judge him. Well, range, making good plays, dear. And I was making fun of that because it's like, what, dude? You're just saying things. And it might be because Boone might have been begging for a new shortstop all season. But, Joe Girardi was begging for a new first baseman all season when they had Chris Carter. Only problem was Joe Girardi did it publicly in the post-game press conference, he got fired, and that was one of the reasons. Boone didn't do it publicly, but yeah.
Yeah,
that was kind of a big, when we heard that from a pretty trusted area, pretty changes the way those empty praise comes off.
Yesterday when he was on K's show, he like used the word like they said he like made errors and was making a few too many mistakes. And that's just a very different tone than what we heard anytime he was ever asked about him all year.
The part that has me in a little bit of a spin cycle, and Joe's texted us about this quote because one of the beat reporters
I put out a whole Twitter video about this quote.
Yeah, it was just confusing because I mean Boone cut in and they, you know, IKF had quotes about his struggles at shortstop, and those quotes were being read, and Boone like cut it off and was like, no, like
I would quibble with that.
Yeah, because IKF holds himself to such a high standard. That's who he is. So I guess the part I'm missing in this formula, and maybe the answer is just who IKF is a person, work-wise and everything, is awesome. And we have heard that.
Yeah.
And the example he is in the locker room has to be kind of cool because let's be honest, I guess maybe this is IKF's double-edged sword, is that he's not very Yankee. You know, we just talked about Josh Donaldson and how he's, you know, kind of this a superstar of the game. A guy won an MVP that they're going to treat him with respect around at every corner. IKF is this like work for everything, hard nose. I'm going to eat it, and then I'm going to be there the next day, and I'm going to do everything I can to put in that work and beat you. And we've heard from all those guys that he is beloved for what and who he is. And that's where the Boone stuff, because they were trying to go back to earlier in the season, and it felt like Boone, who made the decision in the playoff game to pull IKF when it mattered, it did feel like he genuinely had his back throughout the season, which that's the part that just has my wires crossed a little bit. Like, how can you, in the back of your head, know that in the biggest moment when it matters, you're going to be willing to pull the plug on this, but you still kind of believed in what he did in this regular season? That's where it just doesn't add up.
Maybe he doesn't. I mean, maybe all the top shortstop is just him making throwing the analytics guys under the bus, because that's what they're telling him. So the quote was, to really fully explain it, the reporter said, in July, IKF was really struggling, and he came to you guys for help with his fielding, and he said, this is the worst defense I've ever played, and he wanted help. And Boone just cut him off and said, I would quibble with that. That's who he is, high bar accountability. What? Like, everyone that was watching saw he was struggling on defense because he's third baseman, not a shortstop. He sees it and feels it, wants to fix it, and you're just like, don't worry about it, kid. Like, you're good. You're just holding yourself to a high regard. To me, Jake, it feels like they were like, kid, you're 1 year shortstop. As these kids get a year older in AAA, we're not interested in developing you. You're just play short, do what you're doing. Bye. You're awesome. Good job. Good job. I get no. What you're doing is great. And then they turn around and be like, man, I can't wait till next year. We got Peraza up here. That's what it seems, because Cashman steps up, and his first quotes on IKF were, I wrote it down, Kiner was kind of along the lines of what we expected. That's how he said it. He was here to bridge the gap to the rookies, who are highly valued across the league from the trade packages we received for them. And yeah. And then he moved on to JD. I mean, that is not a ringing endorsement. That's saying, like, he was here to be here for a year and we didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's the couple scary parts around that, and actually it's crazy because some of the stuff they're saying. I mean, the next steps are very interesting. When Cashman said that, I almost had a little fear factor that like Peraza was going to be a price we were going to pay to get rid of Donaldson.
It sounded like one Peraza, Oswaldo are going. It sounded like they're not against trading one of those two guys.
Like if you're Cashman and you're on the mic and you're bragging about trade offers for these guys, and then we just had a full conversation about how Donaldson didn't have it. Like I kind of had a weird, whoa, like Peraza, he ended up showing out in AAA. He had a nice little cup of coffee where he was on display in a good way. Like that's kind of almost the Jesus Montero formula, which is a little scary with Volpe in the wings. And, you know, some of the stuff that needs to be fixed with this roster currently that you can't put a thumb on it with a really highly ranked shortstop prospect with a good cup of coffee in the show. That's kind of that red Staples button that everyone used to have. That's your easy button.
Yeah.
If you guys need to get out of jail free, you spin Peraza. He showed out at AAA and then a good cup of coffee that maybe the Yankees didn't want him to get overexposed in the show if they think there's a hole in his game. Or going back to IKF, it was just for Boone's one moment of the press conference to be over animated. And, you know, they talked to Zillow. Like you said, they admitted they were going to come in and say Houston was better. For Boone to be like, for what IKF is over the course of the regular season, like I believe in that. He kind of didn't have to do that to that degree, but he wanted to make a point of it. So I feel it feels like Boone's confused about IKF. Like I think Boone has a little bit of like, I think a girl in school that he's friends with, but he doesn't think he's like kind of not into, but he's like, I don't know. I enjoy my time with them. Like, should I go on that date? And I think he's a little crossed up.
Did you hear Boone's praise for Peraza? That was the most like praise he's given a guy in a while.
Just as scary a little bit to me.
He said he had a good season at AAA. I was always really impressed with his makeup, the work he put in, situations he was thrown into, and how he handled them. Said that right after benching a guy for being not able to handle the situation in the moment and doing too much in the high pressure situations. And then he says that about Peraza. Boone said he definitely put himself in a good position to be the starting shortstop next year. He only helped himself moving forward. So they're talking like, you know, there's a competition at short next year, and they're not talking like IKF's in it to me. They're talking like it's Peraza, Cabrera, Volpe, and one of them might be traded. But yeah, I mean, for Cashman to come out and be like, Kiner was along the lines of what we expected. He was here to bridge the gap to the rookies. No praise. There's no praise in that. Boone did a lot of the fake praising. There's no praise in that. So
yeah, I guess in the Yankees model, I think they think that's praise.
Because you heard what they said about Donaldson and how like next year they hope he returns to form, and next year.
Well, but all of that was tied to him underperforming this year. They didn't have to give any of those conversations because they said, yeah, IKF was who we thought he was, which is the problem.
Sucks for IKF, man, to go ask for help and they're like, yeah, you're doing fine. That's brutal.
Yeah, it's a bad feeling in life.
One good feeling that I got out of this was Cashman said, well, center field was a problem. We locked that up. And I think as Yankee fans, we kind of feel like great about the move to lock up Harrison Bader.
Hotwood Harry, are we calling him, Beebs?
The final Hotwood Award winner?
That's right. Harrison Bader does get the postseason Hotwood Award. In 9 games, he was 10 for 30. That's a clean .333 batting average. 5 homers. I remember those. 4 walks. Got hit by a pitch, so finding his ways on. 6 RBIs. Scored 8 runs. All in all, it's a 1.262 OPS. the highest on the team. He had a really good playoffs. He's the Hot Wood Award winner.
Hottest wood around. If you need to get your wood hot, just use Roman. They gave out the Roman Hot Wood Award. 52% of men over 40 experience some form of erectile dysfunction in their life. Not Bader that I know of. If you're experiencing ED, there's help. Roman, the digital health clinic for men. Right now, Roman has a special offer for our listeners. Use this link, the link in the YouTube description or podcast description. Get $20, 20% off your first order. Just go to ro.co/Yanks today. That's ro.co/Yanks for 20% off. Roman Hotwood. Congrats to Harrison Bader for winning the final award of the season by Roman. ro.co/Yanks.
Yeah. New website, row.co.
And it's nice that we have Bader locked up. Obviously, right field is wide open with the Judge being a free agent. Left field, they did say they wanted Stanton to be. Boone said, my hope is that he plays like a handful of days a week. I think that keeps him healthy. He said he got injured this year on a DH day underneath the tunnel, taking swings, not out in the field playing. Said, obviously, that's just hopeful. We have to see. And then there's no other outfielders, really. I mean, Oswaldo Cabrera is probably going to go back to the infield or somewhere else, but Hicks will be back at some point. They said he would have to win the job or earn the job from whoever has it. I think they're going to try and re-sign Benintendi. And I think maybe that's even like a signing that they can do and it doesn't hinder the Judge allotment. Like it wouldn't have to wait for Judge to be done. And the reason I think that is because they asked Cashman about the 3 true outcomes, how the Yankees led the league in 3 true outcomes and all that. And he said about strikeouts, he said, one of the areas of interest is to limit strikeouts. That's why we went and got Rizzo. It's why we retained him. It's why we went and got Benintendi. It's why we like DJ. So that's good. Do it. Limit strikeouts. It helps. Still hit home runs. But I think Benny might be coming back for the outfield.
Yeah, I was surprised when I initially did a lot of offseason stuff. And I, like a lot of Yankee fans, I think you kind of get a getaway, especially when it's going like this. And especially when the team you thought might be better turned out they were still better. You kind of had to walk away for a little bit and be like, what? Come on, guys. Man, not a ton of left fielders in free agency. And Andrew Benintendi, he's going to play good defense in that big Yankee Stadium left field. He's a contact bat. He's a lefty. So when you start the team needs of left field and the Yankees, Benny hits all boxes. And I think we all at the time kind of did a like, all right, Benny, join the squad. We need a left fielder right now. We're going to let all the Boston stuff go. We're over it. Like, come play some good baseball, and then we'll get you a big free agent contract in St. Louis or something like that, and we'll see you later. After taking a deep breath and, like, thinking about, think about the New York side of it. Like, Benny doesn't care about New York, Boston. He's done all that, especially after we did the Gallo experiment. And a contact hitting defensive left fielder who's lefty, there's kind of one guy. So yeah,
especially with the shift not being around, which is also a thing they talked about a lot.
And that's where I was surprised but it's also what gets scary for Yankee fans, because if now your offseason plan is Benny resigns, Judge resigns, Rizzo resigns when he opts out, you're not getting too many changes until you get to that left side of the infield, which again, they would have to admit they're wrong, package 2 guys that they traded for, and a lot of people think is Cashman's worst move of all time, to move them again, get obviously a lesser package, if not giving prospects to get off of them, to actually change the dynamic of this team. And that's where, unfortunately, one of the big takeaways is I'm a little scared when they chalk this year up as a win better than last year. That means they're not thinking splashy changes. They're thinking a couple tweaks, and I hope it's more impactful to the left side of the infield than you'd expect.
I have no idea. What's out there for left side if they wanted, if they move from Donaldson, if they package someone with Donaldson and they move on from there. We can do an episode looking at this if it goes further, but I don't even know. I don't know who's out there internally, externally. I think it's fair from these talks to expect a rookie at shortstop.
You'd like to think they're at least in the mix, because now between the Oswalds, there's two bodies there.
Well, let me put it this way, Jake.
Volpe should be in play at some point. Did Glaber get mentioned at all today in the presser?
No, they didn't ask good questions at all. At one point, it was 20 minutes about like Cashman's contract, which was, and like the coaching staff. Like Cashman wasted so much time, which is smart of him. Whenever they asked him a lame question, he like talked for 7 minutes because he was like, I'll drag this one out. It was my strategy in sophomore bio. If you asked Mr. Becker about how did the softball game go, because he was the coach, you would lose 15 minutes of class because he would just go on. And we trapped him every day. And Cashman was just trapped. It's like the Belichick one. Like, you ask a boring question, I'm gonna give you a 10-minute answer. You ask a pressing question, I'm gonna give you a 2-word answer. And they didn't get to anything good. The Cashman presser was, I wish they asked better questions. Anyway, they didn't get to Glaber. They didn't get to a lot. One note when they talked about Rizzo is he was like, well, we had two that we liked. We liked Carpenter too. And I was like, what? How did you lump? That was so weird. That for my brain, I was like, if Rizzo walks, are they just going to try and do Carpenter with DJ as the backup?
So the way he did phrase that was odd, but something we have to talk about if this is the press conference episode. They talked about Matt Carpenter going to where were they? Somerset.
Yeah, Reading. They said it was his call. He wanted it.
Which that had intent.
Yeah.
A lot of these conversations we're trying to find maybe the intent behind it. Brian Cashman wanted them to know that the veteran Matt Carpenter, and this is what the Yankees do, and it's how they treat veterans, and it's why it's where they think they hold themselves to a higher regard than other organizations. They asked Matt Carpenter, a veteran, a well-respected guy, you can go to Hudson Valley and you can face Clay Holmes and Wandy while they rehab, or you could go to the Texas Rangers series. He chose to go to Hudson Valley, which,
sounded like the way he said it, like he requested that.
He definitely did, because every MLB hitter ever, when you're a veteran, will tell you that's what they want to do. They, to travel and do that when they can stay locally. But yeah, knowing what happened afterwards is brutal, because guess what? I getting 10 at bats, 5 at bats versus Wandy and 5 bats versus Clay Holmes. That was probably kind of cool. But guess what? They're working on rehabbing. They're not doing everything in their ability to get you out at the plate like a Texas Ranger pitcher would be, who's trying to make a team next year or do better in arbitration. So that's where I think Cashman wanted that out in the ether, that was a Matt Carpenter decision, which respect that they give a veteran the decision. It is kind of cool, but Matt Carpenter now has to take that on the chin.
Yeah, they should have. Yes. When he mentioned him with Rizzo, it was a different instance where I was like, it's kind of like they were talking about Rizzo opting out, and he was like, well, he did a good job, and so did Carpenter. And I was like, wait, what?
Still under contract.
Yeah. Yeah. That's odd. What else do I have here? One note was Cashman said that he's asking players around the league, especially players that have been on their teams, what do other teams do that we're not doing? What can we do, and what can be better, and all that, which is obviously good. Should ask that all the time. And anything else interesting? Coaching staff, everyone who's under contract is coming back. They're working on the people not under contract. Cashman was like, we want Matt Blake back. Like, no, like, yes, we want him back. We have to work on that, but we do want him back. I'm looking at my notes. High praise for Trevino. That was just like, I'm glad Trevino got some love. I don't know who asked that line of question, but that was a waste time. It's like, man.
A taster section. Yeah.
Like, yeah, of course, Trevino. Did Trevino outdo your performances? Like, yeah. Like, duh.
Well, and they said they thought they were going to be a little thin at catcher when they heard Ben went down. So,
come on. I do think it'll be Ben and Trevino next year.
Could.
I have no idea. That's kind of it. I'm interested to get into the offseason and start playing the game. Like, I just put a Google sheet in front of me and I did like potential lineup and rotation and bullpen and all that. And we'll get into that. We have a lot of episodes in the future. But if you're looking for anything from this press conference, there's not much. My one thing, Jake, was we've talked to players. Trevor Plouffe, who does Talking Baseball with us, and some other players, and they say that the there's going to be a competition at camp. It's just an outright farce. No team has ever had a true competition at spring training. That's just what you say when you don't want to gift it to a guy who hasn't earned it yet, or hasn't done it yet. So from a player's mindset, the fact that IKF isn't the shortstop next year and it's a competition, it should be viewed as they are hoping for it to be Peraza, Volpe, Cabrera.
If they don't flop.
Or they have one of those three there, unless they get injured or flop.
I unfortunately think that's an optimistic spin. Because if IKF is on the roster, which that's the question mark, he's going to be the guy making $8 million or whatever it is. And that's normally how the decision gets made. So.
They benched him, man. Cash didn't say anything nice about him or is good. And
that's the area that needs to be shooken up. I don't know how you shake it up. I don't know where Glaber's value is at. DJ can play third. That left side is going
Cashman's
to be
direct quote was, he was here to bridge the gap to the rookies. I believe he said was here to bridge the gap to the rookies.
Stay tuned.
All right, we'll be back. I don't know the cadence. We'll obviously keep you guys informed and everything as we go. Enjoy the rest of your week. Go Yanks. Tell them, Grams.
Go Yankees.
Let's go Yankees! Let's go Yankees!
They said they want Severino back.
No brainer.